What happens when love and pain are the only two things you inherit? When the streets take your brother, when trauma shapes your childhood, and when the past refuses to let go of your future. Welcome to The Silent Gossiper, where every classic has a secret, and we're here to spill it. Today we're revisiting Jason's Lyric, a film that wasn't just about romance, but about survival, family, and breaking free from the cycles that hold us down. We'll check in on the actors behind Jason, Lyric, Joshua, and more, seeing where they are now and how they've grown since bringing this powerful classic to life. First up is Mad Dog, played by the one and only Forest Whitaker. Mad Dog was once a loving family man, a husband and father of two boys, who went off to serve his country in the war. But when he came back home, he wasn't the same man anymore. A devastating injury left him without a leg, and even though he physically returned, a piece of his spirit never did. You can see it in the way he carries himself, haunted, restless, and constantly on edge. He's paranoid, trapped in his own mind, and sometimes turns to alcohol to try to numb the pain. And honestly, he's a character you can't help but feel sorry for, because beneath all the anger and instability, you still catch glimpses of the man he used to be. Forest Whitaker played Mad Dog with absolute perfection, giving the role a raw, heartbreaking truth. He was only 33 at the time, but his performance showed the kind of depth and range that would define his entire career. Forest isn't just an actor, he's a storyteller who brings layers to every role he touches. His filmography is stacked with incredible performances, from The Last King of Scotland, which earned him an Academy Award, to Bird, Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, The Butler, Arrival, and even stepping into blockbuster territory with Black Panther and Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Now at 64 years old, Forest Whitaker is nothing short of a legend. He's one of those rare actors who can disappear into any role, whether it's a broken father like Mad Dog, a revolutionary leader, or a king. His work continues to inspire, proving that his place in Hollywood history is more than secure. Next up is Gloria, played by the beautiful and talented Suzanne Douglas. Gloria was a woman caught in the middle of it all, a wife trying to hold her family together while living a life full of struggle. She was Mad Dog's wife, or at the very least, the mother of his two boys before he went off to war and came back a different man. And from that point on, everything changed. Instead of the loving husband she once knew, she had a broken man who was drinking heavily, paranoid and unpredictable. Gloria had to raise her two boys in fear, carrying the weight of protecting them from the man who was supposed to protect all of them. And on that fateful night, when Jason was forced to take his father's life, you realize just how heavy her burden really was. She wasn't just fighting her own pain, she was trying to shield her children from trauma no mother should ever have to face. What made Gloria's character so powerful is how much she represents the struggle of countless Black mothers. Women who, in the face of pain, fear, and instability, still find the strength to nurture, to love, and to endure. Watching her, you can't help but respect her fight and feel your heart ache for everything she had to go through. Suzanne Douglas brought Gloria to life with such grace and authenticity. She was 37 years old at the time, already an established actress with a career spanning film and television. Before Jason's Lyric, she appeared in the musical drama Tap, alongside Gregory Hines, and also starred in The Inkwell and Chain of Desire. On television, she was a familiar face in shows like Against the Law and The Parenthood, where her warmth and presence made her unforgettable. Tragically, Suzanne Douglas passed away in 2021 due to pancreatic cancer. But her legacy lives on, not only through the roles she played, but through the way she touched audiences with her strength and humanity. She will never be forgotten. Now let's talk about Jason, played by Allen Payne, one of the most heartfelt and grounded characters in Jason's Lyric. Jason was the eldest son of Gloria and Mad Dog, and from a young age he had to carry the weight of things no child should ever have to. He watched firsthand how his mama was treated by his father, and those moments left scars that shaped the man he would become. The most devastating moment of his life came the night he took his father's life. He wasn't some cold-blooded kid. He was trying to protect his mama when Mad Dog went off the leash. But even though it was done in defense, that kind of trauma doesn't just disappear. It haunted him followed him into adulthood, and weighed on him every single day. Still, Jason found a way to rise above the chaos. Unlike his younger brother Joshua, who we'll get to later, Jason grew into a good man. He was steady, responsible, and hardworking. By the time we see him as an adult, he's working at an electronics store, doing his best to carve out a normal life. He's also his mama's favorite, and honestly, who could blame her? He carried himself with a quiet strength that made him the anchor of the family, even when he was broken inside. Allen Payne brought Jason to life beautifully. At the time, he was just 26 years old, but already proving himself as a solid actor. Before Jason's Lyric, he had made a name with roles in classics like New Jack City and the comedy CB4. He even had a stint on The Cosby Show, showing his range early on. After Jason's Lyric, Allen never really had that one breakout mega career, but he still gave us some incredible performances. Personally, I loved him in Blue Hill Avenue and of course as CJ Payne in House of Payne, where he became a household name for many fans. Today, Allen Payne is 57 years old, and while he might not be in the spotlight as much as others from his era, his work in films like Jason's Lyric ensures that he'll always be remembered for the heart and depth he brought to the screen. Up next is Lyric, played by the phenomenal Jada Pinkett. Lyric wasn't just Jason's love interest, she was his light, his safe place, and the woman who showed him there was more to life than pain and trauma. She had this free spirit about her, a softness that balanced Jason's heaviness, but at the same time she wasn't naive. Lyric knew about struggle too, yet she chose to see beauty, to dream bigger, and to love without fear. That's what made her character so special. She represented hope in a story that was otherwise soaked in pain. Lyric's relationship with Jason wasn't just about romance, it was about healing. She helped him confront the shadows of his past, reminded him that even broken people deserve happiness, and gave him a reason to believe in a future beyond his trauma. In many ways, Lyric was the heart of the film. Her name alone tells you she was poetry in motion. Jada Pinkett played the role to perfection. She was only 23 at the time, but already proving she had that star quality. Before Jason's Lyric, she had appeared in Menace to Society, where she held her own in one of the most iconic hood dramas of the 90s. After this film, her career skyrocketed. She went on to star in movies like Set It Off, The Nutty Professor, Scream 2, The Matrix Reloaded, and Revolutions, and more recently in the hit comedy Girls Trip. She also made a big mark on television, starring in shows like A Different World early on, and later Hawthorne and Gotham. Today, Jada Pinkett Smith is 54 years old, and she's more than just an actress. She's a producer, talk show host, and cultural voice with Red Table Talk, where she dives deep into conversations that matter. But no matter how big her career has become, fans of Jason's Lyric will always remember her as the soulful, radiant Lyric, the woman who taught Jason how to love again. And now we get to Joshua, Jason's younger brother, played by Bokeem Woodbine. Joshua was the opposite of Jason in almost every way, reckless, angry, and constantly towing the line between survival and self-destruction. Where Jason carried his trauma quietly and tried to live right, Joshua let his pain explode outward. He grew up in the same house, saw the same abuse, felt the same fear, but instead of grounding him, it twisted him. Joshua is the kind of character you watch with both frustration and heartbreak. On one hand, you can't stand the choices he makes, the violence, the crime, the chaos he brings into Jason's life. But on the other hand, you understand why. He's a product of the trauma he never learned how to process. When Jason tried to heal, Joshua doubled down on the rage. Their dynamic is what makes the story so raw. Two brothers raised in the same fire, but choosing completely different paths. Bokeem Woodbine brought Joshua to life with such intensity that it almost felt too real. He was only 21 at the time, but his performance was unforgettable, raw, gritty, and powerful. Before Jason's Lyric, Bokeem was relatively unknown, but this role put him on the map. From there, his career took off with roles in films like Dead Presidents, Gridlocked, Life, and Ray. He's also made a huge mark on television, from Saving Grace to his award-winning role in Fargo. Now at 52 years old, Bokeem Woodbine has built a career as one of Hollywood's most versatile character actors. Whether he's playing a villain, a troubled soul, or even stepping into the Marvel universe as Shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming, he always brings a unique intensity that commands the screen. And it all started with performances like Joshua, a role that showed just how deep his talent runs. When Joshua got out the pen, one of the first people he reconnected with was his boy Ron. And let me tell you, Ron was moving wild. This wasn't the kind of friend who was going to keep you out of trouble. Nah, Ron was knee-deep in the streets. He's the guy who hooked Joshua up with someone who stole cars and chopped them for parts. That's the lane he was in. And to make things worse, he was hanging out with Alonzo too. So you can imagine, Joshua fresh out of prison, and then he links with Ron and Alonzo? That's a recipe for disaster. Ron was played by Lamar Tate, and he was just 24 at the time. And honestly, he played that role so well because you believed him. That dude who seems fun to be around but always pulls you into some mess you don't need. Lamar didn't blow up into some megastar, but he definitely left his stamp. You probably caught him later in Don't Be a Menace and Barbershop. Now, here's the thing. Even though Lamar stayed more low-key, his brother Lorenz Tate... Oh, Lorenz is the one who really put the Tate family name in lights with movies like Menace to Society and Love Jones. But Lamar never disappeared. He's 54 now, still jumps into projects here and there, but he's also focused on his family life. And honestly, there's something really grounding about that. Not everybody needs to chase the spotlight forever. Sometimes holding it down for your family is the bigger win. Rat, played by Eddie Griffin, was Joshua's boy, his closest friend and the guy always down to hang. But Rat wasn't just some background character. He had a personality all his own. This was the guy who loved women, loved the strip clubs, loved to laugh and keep the energy alive. He was funny, quick-witted, and brought a little bit of lightness to a film that was otherwise heavy with pain and trauma. But here's the thing about Rat. He wasn't like Joshua. He wasn't careless. He wasn't self-destructive. He lived fast, sure, but he had some morals, some boundaries he wasn't willing to cross. You really see that come through during Joshua's welcome home party after he got out of prison. Everyone was there, happy to see him, trying to celebrate the fact that he had a second chance at life. It should have been a beautiful moment. Instead, Joshua came in drunk, loud, and disrespectful. And worst of all, he embarrassed his mama in front of everyone. You could see Rat's face in that moment. He wasn't impressed. He didn't co-sign it. He was disgusted, because he understood what family meant, what respect meant. And that's what separated him from Joshua. Rat might have been wild in his own ways, but he still had a code. Now, Eddie Griffin was 26 when he stepped into this role, and honestly, he was perfect for it. Eddie is one of those people who's just naturally funny. He doesn't even have to try. His comedic energy gave Rat this realness, this authenticity, that made the character pop off the screen. But while Jason's lyrics showed off his acting, Eddie's true calling card has always been stand-up comedy. He's the kind of comedian who will say what everyone else is scared to say, and he'll make you laugh so hard while he does it. Over the years, he's given us classics like Undercover Brother, Deuce Bigalow, and his sitcom Malcolm and Eddie. He's been on our screens for decades, always bringing that same raw energy. Now at 57, Eddie Griffin is still doing his thing, still making people laugh, and still keeping it real. And that's what I respect most about him. He never sold out. In a Hollywood that will chew you up and spit you out if you let it, Eddie never let them change who he was. And then we've got Marty, played by Lisa Nicole Carson. Marty was Lyric's girl, her close friend and co-worker at the diner. And you know what I loved about Marty? She was that friend who always had some wisdom tucked in her back pocket. Whenever Lyric needed advice, especially about relationships, Marty was ready with a gem. She'd quote philosophers, drop knowledge like she'd lived 3 lives already. She was the type of friend who'd tell you the truth, but do it in a way that made you actually stop and think. But here's the twist. As smart and wise as she was, Marty was dating Alonzo. And let's just call it what it is. Alonzo was an asshole. Lyric's brother was immature, selfish, and honestly not even close to being on Marty's level. And it always makes you wonder, how does a fine, intelligent woman like Marty end up with a guy like that? But that's real life, right? Sometimes women, even the brightest ones, get pulled in by narcissists. It's that toxic charm, that false confidence, and Marty got caught up in it. Watching her with him, you just wanted to shake her like, "Girl, you can do so much better." Lisa Nicole Carson nailed the role. She was only 25 back then, but you could already see she had star quality. After Jason's Lyric, she really started climbing, popping up in Devil in a Blue Dress, Eve's Bayou, and then becoming a familiar face on TV with shows like ER and Ally McBeal. She had this energy about her that made every scene feel alive. But life hit her hard in the early 2000s. She started struggling with bipolar disorder, and her career slowed down. It was tough because you could tell she had so much more to give. For a while, she kind of disappeared from the spotlight. But the thing about Lisa is, she's a fighter. She's been working on making her way back, slowly reminding people that her talent never went anywhere. Now at 56, Lisa Nicole Carson is still here, still standing, and still remembered for the character she gave us. Now let's talk about Alonzo, Lyric's brother. Man, this guy was bad news from the jump. Alonzo was one of those dudes who just moved mad, always stirring up drama wherever he went. What made it worse was how he treated his own sister. Instead of protecting Lyric, instead of standing up for her like a big brother should, he was constantly mocking her, tearing her down, making fun of her dreams. It was like he thrived on being a thorn in her side. You couldn't even root for him. You just shook your head every time he showed up. Alonzo was played by Tretch, and if that name rings a bell, it should. Tretch is Anthony Sean Criss in real life, and he's the lead rapper of the legendary hip-hop group Naughty by Nature. Yeah, the man who gave us classics like OPP and Hip Hop Hooray. What's wild is how he brought that same street edge from his music right into his acting. You could feel that authenticity in every scene. And fun fact, Tretch was tight with Tupac Shakur. They weren't just industry friends, they were brothers in spirit, riding with each other through everything. That bond even carried into their work. At just 24 years old, when he did Jason's Lyric, Tretch showed he could more than hold his own on screen. He had already been in films like The Meteor Man and Juice, and he popped up in some major TV shows too, like New York Undercover, and even The Sopranos. Dude was everywhere, and you could see he had a natural talent for this. Today, Tretch is 54, and while music will always be the crown jewel of his career, his role as Alonzo stands out because of how convincingly he played it. He made you hate the character, but that just shows how good he really was in the role. And finally, we have Sean Hutchinson, who played the younger version of Jason. Sean stepped into the shoes of a young boy with a tragic childhood, witnessing his mother being abused by his father and seeing firsthand how his father had changed after the war. Despite the pain and fear, Sean's character found the courage to take a stand, ultimately taking his father's life, an act that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Sean was just 12 years old at the time, and this role marked his film debut. While he never pursued Hollywood stardom or tried to cement himself as a regular on the big screen, he has continued to channel his passion creatively. Today, at 42, Sean focuses on his music, building a career as a talented songwriter, producer, and rapper. I wish him all the best in his journey, both on and off the stage. And that's a wrap on Jason's Lyric, a story of love, pain, and the struggle to break free from the past. Thanks for watching The Silent Gossiper, where every classic has a secret, and we're here to spill it. Until next time, keep revisiting the stories that stayed with you.